Hello, everybody. Clay here, Cardboard Empires. AI is going to devalue the market for older graded PSA cards, and it is going to set the tone to establish a collectible market for modern Pokemon. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people are not going to like me saying this because there is quite a big dichotomy in Pokemon collecting and investing. One side of the aisle says modern is completely uninvestable. Collect it if you want, but there's absolutely no potential for there to be any kind of increased dollar gain when it comes to modern. And the other side says, I like modern. I actually don't really like vintage that much. Personally, maybe you've been able to figure out where I stand on this side of the equation based on my description of the two camps. I like vintage more than modern. Hello, everybody. Clay from the future here. I made a mistake. I meant to say that I like modern more than vintage, and I will now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. And I am old enough to remember when the original WOTC cards came out, the Charizards, all these cards. I just personally like looking at modern cards better. They're more fun. They're more vibrant. The textures, the artworks, except for the 5-band graphics. Not a huge fan of the 5-band stuff. Some of it's okay. Most of it is not really my cup of tea. But I just like the Holy Grail, the Charizard, compared to okay, I have both of them actually sitting right here. I don't know why I'm not just showing them as I'm talking about them. The Charizard versus the sleeping Tyranitar. I like looking at the sleeping Tyranitar more. It's got all this texture on it. There's a whole scene being played out. There's a story being told on the card, and it's really beautiful. The Charizard is the Holy Grail. It is the king. It is the emperor of these cardboard empires. But to me, it's just not that fun. And I have it because other people want it, basically. AI is going to flip the script when it comes to the collectability and investability of both of these camps. Let me explain. It's no secret that a lot of these, like the first Edge Shadowless Charizards, not a lot, but there have been a few that escaped the PSA facility with perfect 10 labels that should not have gotten perfect 10 labels. There's a 10 out there floating around with whitening on the back. And it's not just that card. There are several examples of cards that you look at now and it's like, holy cow, I've gotten 8s. I've sent in cards that have gotten 8s that look like this 10. What's the deal? And the deal is, at the time that those cards were being graded, there was nothing to compare them to. These were in the first generation of Pokemon cards that got graded. So you send a Pokemon card to get graded in 10 years ago, and they're like, okay, well, I don't know, does whitening on the back make this not a 10? This is the only one. So it must be the standard for which we grade all cards against from now on. So this will be the 10. And then the next one comes in, it's in a little bit better condition. Okay, so that's a 10. Unfortunately, that's kind of how grading works. It's like we have this general idea of what a 10 should be, but the bar has moved over time. Do die cut lines on the back make the card not a 10? What if there's little creases on the corners from where the die stamped the sheet? Well, is that a 9 then? Who knows? AI is going to change that, and it's going to reflect poorly on older graded cards because everybody's going to know the cards that are being sent in after they start using AI, those are going to be the cards that have been graded to the highest possible standard. And if those cards get a 10, those are pristine, archival, museum quality pieces. And anything before that, who knows? They always say buy the card, not the grade. And that's good advice. You should always, if something says a 10 on it, that's a good starting point. But then inspect the card as if you were inspecting any other raw card. And if you see something on that card that you don't like, don't buy that card or don't pay the full premium that's being asked for that card. Because there is going to be a day where these old cards are probably they might have to be sent back in to get regraded, unfortunately. Because I think that there's going to be a time when people start rejecting the old labels of PSA graded cards. They're like, this is a pre-AI label. I don't want it. It says 10 on it, but I I can't trust that label. It could be a 7 for all I know. I'm not going to buy it. And in order to regain the liquidity of the older card market, they're going to have to get them regraded with AI. And AI doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be impossible to get a 10, because I have a little bit of a background in programming. I know a little bit of computer programming, a little bit of AI, not a whole lot with like TensorFlow and things like that, but it's adaptive. It's a learning process. So they have a model, and they're going to start scanning cards, and the computer is going to build a model based on, like, you scan 1,000 cards, and it's going to take the average of all the cards and kind of composite together what an ideal 10 should be, and then have like a checklist. And they're going to probably have like a percentage that they're going to set for how many cards they want to be 10s, how many cards they want to be 9s and 8s. And when the computer runs all the cards, they're going to say, okay, well, these are the top 10% of all the cards that ran through. These are the 10s. This is the next category. These are the 9s. It's not going to be, here are the strict criteria, and if the card doesn't meet these strict criteria, it's not a 10. It's going to be more of like an adaptive thing. It'll take the top 5, maybe top 1% of cards, and assign a 10 label to those. And I think that is going to give Modern a lot of potential, hopefully. When you have like a shining tyrant, not a shining, but like a full art, alternate art tyranitar, the manufacturing process on Modern cards, like some of the WOTC cards in the past, has been abysmal. If you watch that 100 sleeved booster pack opening video that I did of Battle Styles, some of those cards are coming out of the pack as if the backs were used as sandpaper. There's jagged whitening all over the back, like somebody took a steak knife and cut it out of the sheet. Not die cut stamp. Somebody took a steak knife and started stabbing it out of the sheet. They look awful. Pack fresh. And I know there's a funny meme that says pack fresh is not a card quality, which I agree with. For some reason, that's become like a new thing in the Pokemon hobby, that pack to sleeve, people list pack to sleeve as if it's a card quality, which it's not. But you would assume that you should at least be looking at an 8, or not an 8, but a 9, like a high 9, if it's pack to sleeve. But that's just not the case with a lot of Modern cards, and a lot of vintage cards too. And more to the point, some of those vintage cards that were packed to sleeve with whitening on the back have gotten 10s, have gotten 9s, when they absolutely should not have. But with the AI and people sending in like Chonkachus and sleeping Tyranitars, it's going to assign a specific amount of those cards as 10s. It's not going to let every card go through as a 10. Like when you send Japanese in, and Japanese is widely accepted in the hobby as having very high manufacturing standards, a lot of Japanese are pretty easy to get 10s on, but that's not going to be the case with AI. They're going to have a percentage, and it's going to say, we do want 10s. We're not CGC, or we're not Beckett. Maybe it's going to turn into a system like that, but it's going to say, we only want the top 5% of all of these cards that come in to be assigned 10s. So maybe there are pristine copies of cards that just don't get 10s because the pool is full already. And I think moving forward, we're going to see that really drag down the market for older PSA graded cards. Personally, once AI is implemented, there's going to be a label change, I'm sure, because PSA has changed their label in the past. It's an easy way to look at a graded card and identify what era it's from. I'm sure there's going to be another label change. Maybe it's subtle. Maybe they're not going to change very much, but you will be able to look at it and easily identify, okay, now this is from the new AI era. And after that era is begun, personally, I'm not going to look at a WOTC graded card from the older eras the same way that I'm going to look at a WOTC graded card from the AI era. You can look at a WOTC graded card from the AI era and be like, oh, that's a 10. Okay, that's a 10. A robot said that's a 10. So there's going to be no doubt in my mind. You look at some of these older cards and it's like, that's a 10. Well, some guy who's making like $10 an hour said that's a 10 after his 7,000th card for the day. I don't know. I don't know if I can trust that as much. And that's not to take shots at card graders. Card graders are doing a very important job. They're not paid nearly enough. I don't know how they convince people to be card graders personally. I'm not sure how that works. It's like, hey, especially somebody who lives out of state. It's like, hey, move to California, move to Florida, and sit in a room all day. I guess kind of like the room that I'm already sitting in all day. And you can look at 10,000 cards a day, cards with varying values. You can look at cards that cost $1. You can look at cards that cost $10,000. You are responsible for the well-being of those cards, and for that major responsibility, we'll give you $10 an hour or whatever the price is. It's not very high. I think like the median salary is like 50 to 60 a year. It's not a lot of money. And I think moving forward, AI is actually going to help that part of the whole process too. They're not going to need to employ as many card graders because AI is going to take a large portion of the workload off of people. And so that hopefully some people will have to lose their jobs, but the people who are able to stick around as card graders are going to be able to make a lot more. That's my hope personally, because they do a lot of work and they deserve a lot of money. But people will always have a place in the card grading environment, is my opinion. They're never going to fully rely on AI to grade the card. It's probably going to be like cutting through the major bulk, and then like a person or two people are going to have the final say. It's just going to be a quick check. It's like the computer said this is a 10. Okay, this is a 10. I concur. Slab it. It's not going to. And think of all the work that the AI can do that the people have to do now. They have to do the research on the card. Like if this is a fancy like unicarp, and they have to look up what's a unicarp. What's it supposed to be? Are there gray stamps? Are there dark stamps? Are there common print errors? Is there like an ink splotch in this corner that all unicarps have? And if this unicarp doesn't have this ink splotch, then this is like a really good unicarp. AI is going to be able to do all that in an instant. Oh my gosh, it's revolutionary. And I hope PSA can pull it off, because I think that it is really going to speed up and revolutionize the process of card grading. But yeah, you think of all the stuff that card graders have to do. They have to do all the data entry to populate the label that goes into your slab, and all the research. They're just not paid enough for so much work. Let me know how you feel about AI stepping into the graded card world in the comments section down below. I personally think it's going to be a little bit of a rough transition period, but once we fully get into that new world, it's going to be fantastic. And I am going to be a little bit happy to see the WOTC era graded cards get drugged down in price. It's going to happen. I promise it's going to happen. And I'm not going to shed any tears about it, because those cards, a lot of them got grades that they probably shouldn't have gotten. And it's going to help the hobby as a whole to get every card on the same page. I think people with big collections of those old WOTC graded cards are going to have to get them regraded. And it's going to help the hobby as a whole, the stability of the market as a whole moving forward, to have every card graded to the same standard in the same era. And then we can all work together, excuse me, to really begin to establish a safe and stable market price for these cards. Because that's kind of what we've been missing up until this point. The market has fluctuated so wildly, because, I mean, you see like first ed base Shadowless Charizards, one's going for $500,000, one's going for $300,000. They're both PSA 10s. And what's the justification? Well, they're both PSA 10s, but this one got a little bit of whitening. This one, perfect card. We don't have to deal with that anymore. And I am excited for the day that we don't have to deal with that anymore. Let me know how you feel. Thanks for watching. As always, I will catch you later.